I'm Peggy, standing in this private conference room, surrounded by 6 of the industry's most powerful investors. I can't help but let my mind wander back to the events that led me here. Just 48 hours ago, my world was shattered in a boardroom, and now I'm on the verge of a new beginning. It all started with a presentation that was supposed to secure the future of the company I worked for. I had dedicated 3 years of my life to developing a method to stabilize volatile compounds, a breakthrough that could revolutionize targeted drug delivery. But just as I was about to present my findings to a group of investors, a woman named Ava, the daughter of the company's CEO, Mr. Thompson, walked in. Ava was fresh out of a top-tier business school in Asia. Her family was wealthy, with her father being a well-known figure in the industry. She was used to getting what she wanted and had a sense of entitlement. Mr. Thompson was a shrewd and ambitious man, always looking for the next big thing to boost the company's reputation and profits. That day in the boardroom, Ava strode in wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. With a smug look on her face, she interrupted me mid-sentence. "Sorry to interrupt, Peggy," she said, but her tone was anything but apologetic. "There's been a change of plan." I watched in horror as she took over the presentation. The slides she showed were eerily similar to the concepts I discussed in the lab late at night, concepts that I'd written in my personal notebooks. She presented it all as the company's innovation, her team's work, and the investors were immediately captivated. The lead investor, Mr. Harris, stood up and applauded. "This is exactly what we hope to see," he said, beaming at Ava. "Much more commercially viable." I felt like my heart had been ripped out. 3 years of hard work, gone in an instant. I packed my laptop mechanically and left the boardroom. As I walked out, Mr. Thompson, who had once told me I was the future of the company, looked through me as if I was already gone. "Enjoy the funding," I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady. Driving home, I was in a daze. I knew I had to act fast. I had already been working on protecting my research outside of company hours, using my own resources. I had a feeling that Ava's interest in my work was more than just curiosity. Ava had arrived at the company 8 months ago. Mr. Thompson introduced her with pride, saying that her fresh perspective would be a great asset. I tried to be friendly. When she asked questions about my research, I shared my knowledge, thinking she genuinely wanted to learn. But one day, she leaned against my workstation and said, "You're brilliant, Peggy, but you don't understand how this industry actually works." I didn't realize then that those words were a warning. 3 days before the investor meeting, Ava started asking more detailed questions. She insisted on seeing my latest lab notebooks. I should have been more cautious, but I was naive. When I got home that day, my dog, Max, sensed my distress and nuzzled against me. I buried my face in his fur, trying to come to terms with what had happened. I knew that by the next day, Mr. Thompson would realize what I had done. I had removed some critical elements from the company's system, elements that were necessary for the process to work. The next morning, I prepared for the confrontation. I dressed in my most professional outfit and headed to the lab. The security guard gave me a confused look. "Thought you quit yesterday," he said. "Not officially," I replied with a smile that felt forced. As I walked into the lab, the atmosphere was tense. Conversation stopped as I passed, and my colleagues avoided eye contact. My friend Lily appeared at my side. "Mr. Thompson has been looking for you since yesterday afternoon. He's furious." "What did you do?" she asked. "Nothing he didn't deserve," I said, carefully packing my coffee mug into my bag. Before I could say more, Mr. Thompson's voice boomed across the lab. "Peggy, my office. Now." The walk to his office felt like a death march. Every eye was on me. When I entered his office, he was red-faced with anger. "Close the door," he barked. I did as he said and stood waiting. "Where is it?" he demanded. "Where is what, exactly?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. He was getting impatient. "Don't play games with me. You know exactly what's missing. The investors are arriving in an hour to finalize everything, and suddenly we can't access the core stabilization process, the one you were responsible for." I just stared at him in silence, enjoying the way his confidence started to crack. "I'm afraid I don't know what you mean," I said finally. "According to yesterday's meeting, you're going with Ava's concept instead. My ideas aren't needed anymore." His face darkened. "Her concept relies on your stabilization process, which is suddenly incomplete in our systems. What did you remove?" I smiled, knowing I held all the cards. "I didn't remove anything from company systems, Mr. Thompson. That would be unethical and possibly illegal." Just then, Ava rushed in, her confidence from the day before replaced by panic. "Daddy, the lab team can't."
She stopped when she saw me.
"What is she doing here?" I turned to face her calmly. "I came to collect my things. Since you made it clear yesterday that my ideas aren't needed anymore." Ava looked from me to her father and back again. "You did something. We can't get the stabilization process to work." "That's unfortunate," I said, adjusting my bag on my shoulder. "Have you tried following your own innovative approach, the one you presented yesterday?" The color drained from her face. "You know I was building on your work. Did I? That wasn't mentioned in your presentation. In fact, I believe you specifically said you developed an alternative approach." Mr. Thompson stepped forward. "Enough games. The investors will be here soon. Fix this, and we can discuss compensation, a promotion, whatever you want." I looked him in the eye. "I'm afraid I can't help you, Mr. Thompson. As I said, I didn't remove anything from company systems. Everything I developed while employed here remains intact." Ava hissed. "Then why isn't it working?" I checked my watch deliberately. Perhaps because science requires understanding, not just slides and buzzwords. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting of my own to attend." Mr. Thompson tried to block my path. "You're not going anywhere until you fix this." I looked up at him, keeping my expression neutral. "Are you physically preventing me from leaving? Because that would create a whole different set of problems for you." After a moment, he stepped aside, his jaw clenched so tight I could almost hear his teeth cracking. "This isn't over," he said. "Actually, it is," I replied, walking past him. "I quit yesterday, remember? When your daughter announced that my ideas weren't needed anymore." As I walked through the lab, I could feel their stares on my back. Most of my colleagues would never dare to stand up to Mr. Thompson, but I had had enough. Outside, I took a deep breath. The morning air felt refreshing after the suffocating tension inside. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "What just happened?" she asked. I didn't have the energy to reply. A short while later, Mr. Harris called me. "We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop across the street in 5 minutes," he said. When I entered the coffee shop, Mr. Harris was already there. His normally immaculate appearance was a bit disheveled. "What happened in there?" he demanded. I sipped my coffee. "You'll have to be more specific." He was frustrated. "Don't play games, Peggy. Yesterday, Ava presents a revolutionary stabilization process. Today, nobody can make it work, and Mr. Thompson looks like he's about to have a stroke." I nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting dilemma. What do you want?" He was direct. "To fix this. To make the process work like it did in all the preliminary reports we reviewed." I shook my head. "You're negotiating for the wrong company, Mr. Harris. I'm not interested in going back to work for Mr. Thompson." He narrowed his eyes. "Then what do you want?" I took another sip of coffee. "You're investing in a specific innovation, correct? A molecular stabilization process that allows for targeted delivery with minimal degradation. And you verified that this process works? That it's reproducible?" He shifted uncomfortably. "The preliminary data was compelling, but this morning, suddenly nobody can make it work." I said, "Doesn't that concern you?" He said, "It would concern me more if I didn't think you were behind it somehow." I smiled. "That's quite an accusation. Am I wrong? Let me ask you something, Mr. Harris. In yesterday's presentation, who did Ava say developed this process?" He frowned, thinking back. "She presented it as the company's innovation. Her team's work." I nodded slowly. "Interesting." His expression changed as he understood. I stood up. "You should be very careful about where you put $80 million. especially when the person presenting can't actually deliver what they're selling. I handed him a business card with just a phone number on it. Call this number at 3 p.m.
M.
today if you're interested in seeing what actually works. Back in my apartment, my phone was lighting up with messages. The lab was in chaos. Ava was blaming faulty equipment, and Mr. Thompson was threatening to fire everyone if they didn't fix it. At 2:30 p.m.,
M. my doorbell rang.
it was Mr.
Thompson.
He looked older and more defeated than ever. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual authority. I let him in. He glanced around my modest apartment, taking in the stacks of scientific journals and the cluttered desk. The investors walked out. He said finally, "I'm sorry to hear that." I replied, not really meaning it. "No, you're not."
You planned this, he said.
I shook my head. "I planned nothing, Mr.
Thompson.
I simply quit after being publicly humiliated and having my work stolen."
He winced.
Ava was overzealous. She shouldn't have presented without acknowledging your contributions. Contributions? That's an interesting way to describe creating the entire process. I laughed harshly. He tried to convince me to come back. "We can fix this. Come back. Full credit, higher position, name your terms." I looked at him. "Why would I trust you now? You mean everything I built while you took the credit?" He flinched but didn't deny it. "What do you want, Peggy?" "I want you to leave," I said. "Be reasonable. We both lose if you—" "No, Mr.
Thompson.
Only you lose. I have a meeting to prepare for," I said, glancing at my watch. His face darkened. "With who?" "That's not your concern anymore," I replied. He stood up angry again. "You can't take our research to competitors. Everything you developed belongs to the company." "I didn't take anything that belongs to the company, Mr.
Thompson.
I promise you that," I said. His eyes narrowed. "Then why can't we make it work?" I opened the door. Perhaps because science is complex and not everything can be stolen with a flashy presentation. As he stepped out, his phone rang. "We're not finished," he said, answering the call. At 3 p.m.,
M. Mr.
Harris called. He was with the entire investment group. They needed certainty. I told them to text me the address, and I'd bring everything they needed to see. 2 hours later, I was standing in front of the investors, ready to present my work. "What you're about to see belongs to me, not to Mr. Thompson's company," I said. Mr. Harris was skeptical. "That contradicts what we were told yesterday." I said, "I imagine many things you were told yesterday won't hold up to scrutiny." I launched into my presentation, explaining the true methodology behind the stabilization process. I demonstrated the results with samples I'd prepared, and the investors were impressed. When I finished, Mr. Harris said, "This is remarkable work, Peggy, but it raises serious questions about what happened at Mr. Thompson's company." I said, "I can answer those questions, but first, I need to know if you're interested in funding the actual innovation, not just a presentation about it." Another investor, MS. Reed, asked, "Are you saying you've established your own company?" I nodded. "I have as of 3 weeks ago." I sensed which way the wind was blowing.
Yes.
Reed was concerned. "Mr. Thompson will fight that claim." I slid a folder across the table. "Let him try. This contains documentation of every step I took to protect my work, verified by independent legal counsel."
Mr.
Harris opened the folder and scanned the contents. "You've been planning this for months." I corrected him. "I've been protecting myself for months. There's a difference." They asked about what happened that morning. I explained that they never fully understood the process. Ava saw the destination, but not the path. I also told them about how I noticed Ava's suspicious behavior. After the second time I caught her going through my desk after hours, I created a separate research path. I even had security footage to prove it. The investors discussed privately. Then, Mr. Harris said, "We need to verify your claims independently." I welcomed that. MS. Reed suggested pausing discussions with Mr. Thompson's company. As I was packing up, Mr. Harris approached me privately. "Mr. Thompson called me 6 times today. He claims you stole research." I said, That would be projection on his part. He studied me. You knew this would happen, all of it. I met his gaze. I knew what kind of people I was dealing with. The rest was just paying attention. That evening, I met Lily at a quiet restaurant. She was exhausted. I've never seen anything like today. Mr. Thompson completely lost it. He threw a chair through his office window, she said. I nodded. I protected myself and my work.
How? She asked.
I smiled. By understanding people's motivations. Mr. Thompson wants status and control. Ava wants to prove herself to her father without doing the work. The investors want a return without risk. And I want recognition for what I built and never to feel as powerless as I did in that boardroom. She asked, You're starting your own company, aren't you? Already started 3 weeks ago. I replied. Her eyes widened. Before the presentation? I nodded. I saw where things were heading. She hesitated. Is there room for another scientist? I said, I thought you'd never ask. The next morning, my lawyer called. Mr. Thompson had filed an emergency injunction trying to block me from using his research, but the judge had denied it based on the documentation I'd provided. By afternoon, industry blogs were buzzing with rumors. Mr. Thompson's company stock had dropped 15%. Board members were calling emergency meetings, and I learned that Ava had been quietly removed from her position. That evening, Ava came to my lab. She looked defeated. My father won't speak to me. The board removed me this morning. Everything's gone, she said. I said, You destroyed yourselves. I just refused to go down with you. She asked, How did you do it? How did you know what would happen? I said, I paid attention to details, to patterns, to people. While you were studying my notes, I was studying you. She winced. The investors are talking to you now, aren't they? I nodded. They won't invest in your father's company even if you're gone. The damage is done. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to restore. She stood up. I didn't come here for sympathy. I came to understand what happened. As she left, she said, You planned all of this from the beginning. I corrected her. I simply created options for myself, while you and your father eliminated yours. 48 hours after Ava interrupted my presentation, everything had changed. Mr. Thompson's company was in freefall, the investors were negotiating with me, and my company, Nova Therapeutics, was on the verge of getting $60 million in initial funding, with the potential to reach $100 million. Mr. Harris called to tell me the board's decision. He also said that Mr. Thompson was being removed as CEO. They even asked if I was interested in taking his place. I laughed. I'm flattered, but no. I'm building something of my own now. The next morning, a courier delivered a package to my apartment. Inside was my original lab notebook, the one that had disappeared from my desk months earlier. A small note accompanied it, written in Mr. Thompson's handwriting. You've won. Was it worth it? I closed the notebook, feeling the weight of years of work in my hands. Later that afternoon, I walked into our expanded lab space. Lily and 2 other scientists were setting up equipment. They looked up at me with respect. Ready to change the world? I asked. Their smiles told me that